Hey, this is Jacob Healt, and this is my film, Write Me a Letter When You Return Home. I made this film for my CP1 class as a final film for the entire semester, and I think it turned out pretty good, so today I'm going to break it down for you. So literally within the first 3 seconds, it says, "For Nana and Papa, thank you for everything." That's for my grandparents. I call them my Nana and my Papa. I am very grateful for everything that they've given me and for everything that they've helped me with. And they actually are the stars of this film, and I think they're pretty neat. So I kind of knew that I wanted this film to start out with a record player just because I think it's really cool. And I figured this would be a really good introduction into giving the story some music, even though it probably wasn't necessary because music can come from anywhere. I think giving a foundation adds to it, and it helps you introduce the character, who in this case is Enola Niaga. Fun fact, which backwards that spells alone again, which I think is very cool. And that comes into play later in the story. But I knew from the very start that I wanted this to start out with a record player because it shows that she is older and she enjoys records. It's a little self-explanatory. It doesn't have a huge meaning behind it, but I still think it's pretty cool. And the soundtrack for this film was actually made by my friend Simon Stainbrook. He's a very cool dude. He's a music major and he's really good at this. And I think the soundtrack for this film turned out pretty good. You'll notice in this film that there is a lot of emphasis on flowers, and I believe that that is important to Enola's character, how she enjoys gardening, and how she uses that to pass the time. This little close-up shot is more just so you can see that it says Clay comes home, and that's just so you know that there is somebody that's supposed to be there. And that does mean that today is the 30th, so Clay is supposed to come home today. Another detail of that shot is that Enola picks up 2 cups. There's only one of her. There's a hidden meaning behind that, and it's definitely intentional. And that sort of comes at the plot twist at the end. Additionally, she does only make 1 cup of coffee, so there is a little part inside of her that knows the truth. I really like the way that this shot is set up. I just think it's really cool, and I think the lighting is kind of neat. I'm very proud of myself for this one. And eventually, at some point, we get a close-up of that wedding photo, and that wedding photo is actually my grandparents' wedding photo, which I think is really neat.
My beloved Enola, I hope this letter finds you well. I miss every day I don't get to spend with you.
My friend Vivian Rose actually wrote all of these letters, and I changed them up a little bit just to make it fit with the way I wanted the story to go. So they're almost identical to how she wrote them, and she did a fantastic job with the writing. And I think that's what really helped make this film, was the people who helped me with it.
And hope to tell you soon that I love you in person. You are missing from me, and you are missing from me each day I am away. Your dearest, Clay.
So this is actually an army photo of my grandfather at the Vietnam War. He served in Vietnam for a few years. I believe he was 19 in this photo, which is the same age I am now, and that is just kind of crazy to me.
My dearest Clay.
This is such an unnecessary button, but I like the little trill that Simon does on the piano. He actually played the piano for this film, and I really like the little that he does. It's kind of fun.
Oh, what a morning it was to receive your letter. I wish to see you and your handsome face. How it would bring me life.
Just a little note for this that I wish I would have noticed before I finished filming. That cup is actually empty, and it's very obvious by the way that my grandmother sets it down. I feel like I learned a lot from doing this film, especially seeing as this is my first film. It's my first full dive into making a story, so I did all of the parts for this. Like, I played director, DP, audio engineer, yada yada yada. It was kind of like my first dive into making films, and I think it was a really good learning experience, and I'm still very proud of this film.
Of such sweetness as you, my love. It's all I swear. Oh, my dear, my sweetness and life, don't you know your words caress? How I miss you. But I am strong.
And here's another part where you can see Enola going through the flowers. She did earlier too. She was going through a bunch of different flowers, and now she's walking around. This is like what she does to fill her day, is what's happening right now.
I will wait for you for 1,000,000 years. Your beloved Enola.
I think this part is really sweet, just the way my grandma draws the heart. It's not perfect, it's not overdone, it's just really cool. And this is actually, all of these shots of these letters are actually my grandmother's handwriting. I actually had her write this out for the film, and I think that adds just another layer of realism to it, and I think that's really cool. Another thing you'll notice is that Enola holds her cup a certain way. She always grabs it by the side and by the handle. Every shot, every time she picks it up, she's always holding it with both of her hands like that.
My beloved Enola, I saw a lake today as we were marching down a trail.
So this part of the film was actually filmed on a different day, and the weather completely changed up on us. Like in some of the first shots of this film, because this film was filmed very chronologically. That's just the way I preferred to do it, because that's how I had done the storyboard for it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get all of the first things done first, and then I'm going to go and do the B-roll shots. And I consider these the B-roll shots, especially because there's voiceover. These were actually filmed on a different day, and the wind you can see is much stronger, and it's sort of like blowing my grandmother away. It was cold, so we actually had my grandfather standing to the side out of the frame holding a coat for her, so in between takes she could go and put the coat on.
The sun was setting and the hillside was green. But the most dazzling thing...
There is an inconsistency with this because I only made one letter because I didn't think I was going to do another shot of it, but I needed another shot of it. Again, learning experience. I've learned a lot from this film, especially revisiting it like 4 months later. But this is actually the beginning part of the first letter. This is the original text, I believe, that Vivian gave me, is put on this letter. So if you ever wanted to pause it, you could literally read all of this. And it doesn't line up at all with what he's saying. It's just the message is that it's from Clay.
Were the water fairies. They shone with all the color of your eyes. They danced like the first dance we shared at our wedding. I wish we could have seen this together. I see you everywhere. Perhaps soon I can hold you. My love for you is never ending.
You can actually notice an inconsistency here too in the background. Again, learning experience. I just want to say learning experience. You can actually see in the background, you can see the stuff that I moved out of the way and off the table so it wasn't in the background, and it still ended up in the background. And you can see the makeup brush I used to make the letters look older, but like you can see my grandmother's phone in the background as well. Again, learning experience. I now know that that stuff should not be in the background, and I gotta double check my shots.
Your dearest Clay.
My dearest Clay, your clothes in my closet are worn out. They are stained and they are tattered. I just wish that you could know how long I've waited and how much more I'm willing to wait. My darling Clay.
You'll notice in this shot that the letters actually doesn't line up again, and that's just because I filmed it wrong. Again, learning experience. I'm pointing out a lot of mistakes that I made, and I think it's important to know because this is my first venture into filmmaking. You'll also notice that the music starts to change, and you can notice that tonal contrast.
My world is crumbling. The kids are away, and I am home alone, doing nothing. I miss you severely. My heart is quaking. I need you here before I run out of tears.
And this is sort of like almost the end of the film right here. It's just very sad. My grandmother, I think, got a little choked up when recording this.
I beg and I pray that you're not taken from me. Oh, my darling, please come home to me, your beloved Enola.
And you'll notice now that her voice is going to start to fade into the distance, and you're not going to see any shots with her in it. And that is very intentional, and it turns out she's passed away. Clay never came home because Clay had already passed away. So she was reading old letters and responding to the old letters. And I don't know if I ever did a good job of making that very clear in the film. I think a lot of it was because of time crunch, and I didn't really fully get a chance to figure out how I wanted to do it because it was for a class. But the next time I'm making a film, I definitely know now what I can and can't accomplish in a certain time frame. This might have been too big of a project for me to take on with this idea for my final film for CP1. I do think that it turned out really well, and I really do like how this ended.
My dearest Clay, where are you? Have you gotten my letter? I'm worried. Please come back to me. I miss you, sweetheart.
And we fade to black. And that is the entirety of Write Me a Letter When You Return Home. I feel like it's important to mention the credits because of all the amazing people that helped me with this film. And a lot of my friends helped me come up with parts of the ideas of this. And I think they're fantastic and amazing, and I thank them ever so much because this film turned out to be pretty good for my first venture into filmmaking, and I owe it all to them. So thank you guys. And I do want to point out one thing at the end of the credits. The ending trill, the bum 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 bum, like that is so good. And I think Simon actually improvised that part right there, and I think that is fantastic. It just sounds so like gooey. I feel like gooey is not the right word, but that's just how it makes me feel, because I feel like it's the perfect notes to end the film on.